I'm Tyler Stutzman, and I'm here doing this podcast because I'm part of it.
That's a great intro, man.
Right? I was thinking about it like all day, and I settled on that one.
It
reeks.
Anyways,
it reeks of premeditation.
Anyway, Geeks and Suits, episode 9. Chase Gerber here with Ben Gerber and Tyler Stutzman.
Word!
Yeah.
We are recording this Monday, the 28th of July.
This is a gloomy Monday.
Yeah, it's been
very crappy out here in Berlin,
but
Ohio.
Ben, I just had an idea.
Yeah. Oh wow, this is a quick start.
Yeah, for one of these, the weather is like something you fall back on when you have nothing to talk about with anyone.
Let's not catch up talking about the weather because that's what you do when you don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's like, all right, well, we don't have anything in common, so no. Okay, here's my idea. For one of these, to steal a term from Achievement Hunter, for one of these, let's you and I get like bevved up. And Chase can moderate. So sober Chase.
How have we not
done trying to moderate you two?
Well, okay. Here's how we didn't do it because we were on video before.
Yeah.
And now that we're going to the audio podcast only, which
primarily
listeners we're going. Well, technically, right now it's still watchers, but it's listeners also because it's on YouTube.
You listen.
Yeah. We might look into some hosting.
Now that I've got a job that actually pays me. And if you're gonna be a full-time member of the podcast like you have been so far, and because you're not getting out of it, we can just split like something 3 ways and be like, all right, we're doing this so we can actually get an audio podcast and get it somewhere where it's easier to access. Yeah,
we should totally look into that.
Yes. So, but for now, you're on YouTube. And you're watching it there, and you're listening.
But anyway,
it's basically
my idea.
We should.
And that's why we didn't do it before.
We should do it without saying.
We had
see if they can tell. Maybe we should start acting more flamboyant.
Yeah, and
say more outlandish things.
Nobody will see it, and it'll be glorious.
Yes.
But we couldn't do it before because of video and worrying about
first
people
impressions.
Well, not just that, but I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to like. Show the beer that we have or the alcohol.
That is true.
I imagine that it's probably not the worst because I mean we showed Game of Thrones stuff all the time.
It's not posters
and
stuff,
even like the Game of Thrones beer after I think the Purple Wedding or something like that. I mean I'm sure it's not an issue, but I just don't want to risk, especially if we're gonna have like 12 each, and it's like we just slammed a bunch of alcohol and then decided to do a podcast.
That would actually be really funny. I would really enjoy doing that someday.
I mean, we could do like a Saturday afternoon or some kind of day drinking session, and then do it later in the evening or something.
I'm okay with that, and on top of that, I feel like we could possibly get more people in here to do that. And it would just be a complete nightmare.
Yeah,
like it would just be the
worst podcast
it would be the worst
ever.
Like
it might be unlistenable.
It would be even worse than us trying to yell
over each
other now. It would be so.
Yeah. There'd be much more crossover. We might have to screen it first.
Yeah,
and make sure it's bearable. Run back the next day. And
do a practice bevved up podcast with 11 people.
Maybe we should watch Battleship. While we're drinking,
I've wanted to do that,
and then we can.
Okay, hey, let's settle this right now. When are we gonna have our shitty movie night?
Okay,
I
don't know when we're gonna have it, and I don't want to commit to something on the record just because I would worry that just without looking at a calendar or anything in front of me that it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about when it's gonna be. But before we get into our topics tonight, which are gonna be primarily sports and one little debate thing at the end that I saw earlier today on Twitter.
That we all agree on.
We all agree on with like very little caveat as far as like who the second place guy would be. But we need to figure out what the movies are going to be that we're going to watch for this shitty movie marathon.
Yes,
because
we do.
Okay, it's clearly Battleship because
absolutely.
I didn't watch the end in anticipation of watching it with you guys.
What was the one you were just watching that you
I can't remember.
You were live tweeting it.
Oh my gosh.
And Lisa looked down on you because you were live tweeting it.
I can find that.
Hold on to Twitter.
I can find that. It was very recent.
Anyways, other movies I think we should watch. We definitely have to throw in a Schumacher Batman movie because those are complete shit.
Well, it's Batman Forever, clearly. I mean, there's no other There's no other choice.
Batman and Robin
Batman
is
and
even
Robin
worse.
are pretty bad too, I think.
I think that's what I meant. Was Batman?
Yes, Batman and Robin is definitely the best. Batman Forever
actually had a redeeming point to it here and there.
See, well, Batman Forever by no means was it good, but I can watch that. I could watch that multiple times and be okay with it. But Batman and Robin is so bad, it's not acceptable. Tyler, I think you have your
White House Down.
White House Down. I just saw it too.
White House Down. I watched all of that though, but it doesn't make it any less ridiculous. I have to say with White House Down, the part that of everything in it that was ridiculous and irked me the most was at the very end, and I'm gonna spoil it for you. Channing Tatum is the good guy, and he kills the main bad guy. But I'm not going to say who it is, even though you find out after like 30 minutes.
Is it a twist
really
on who
cares?
the real bad guy is?
No.
Not
It's a
at all.
twist initially.
Yeah, and
But he kills
that.
him with a giant Gatling gun mounted on a Jeep or like an SUV.
Halo?
Yeah, kind of like an SUV. And like from me, well, I guess there's no video, so that doesn't work. But it's like less than 10 feet away from the Gatling gun to this guy, and he
shuts him up?
unloads on him. But it's rated PG-13, so it's just like it turns into like him. Like there's dust all around where he shoots this guy. It's like if that was realistic, 4 shells in, that guy would have holes as big, like 6 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
Like he'd just be goop after the amount of shells that Channing Tatum puts into him. But instead, afterwards, you see him kind of like slump there, like dead. And it's like, seriously, that guy should be paced 3 rooms over.
Identifiable.
You can't identify him by dental records because his teeth are in 32 different rooms.
You couldn't even identify him as a human.
And it's really actually really funny that White House Down is such a crappy movie because you had Olympus Has Fallen, which was kind of the same premise.
No, it's the exact same premise.
Yeah,
it's the same premise. Yeah, it's way more kick-ass than White House Down, I would assume.
Olympus Has Fallen was a pretty decent.
I really did enjoy it.
Someone that I talked to said it was like Die Hard in the White House with Gerard Butler as the Bruce Willis character, but he wasn't as good as John McClane. But even still, it was a much more enjoyable dumb action movie than White House Down because White House Down was ridiculous, and Olympus Has Fallen at least tried to be enjoyable.
It was disappointing because Jamie Foxx had just come off Django Unchained too.
Yep.
It was just like, Jamie, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And why can't I think of it?
What the other movie?
Gerard Butler saws off people's legs. Law-abiding citizen,
which Jamie Foxx was in.
which Jamie Foxx was in, which was awesome.
That was a pretty good movie. That's one of my favorite
really
Gerard Butler movies, even though it's pretty paint by numbers. But I still like it.
Yeah.
It's
Anyways,
an interesting
What
one.
other shitty movies can we throw in there?
I don't know.
Any ideas?
We gotta keep it moving. We can think about it later.
Yeah, that's very true. We are getting sidetracked extremely
let's start
early.
talking.
Anyway, let's get to our. Let's get.
No, I mean that's what this.
I'll get to the point.
Let's actually talk about something. Biggest thing. We haven't done a podcast in about 2 weeks because me and Ben were on vacation.
I started
last week. We couldn't get one. Biggest news: LeBron James is coming back to Cleveland.
Yes,
the return.
Totally
It's been that
complete
long
surprise.
since we've done one.
Yeah, it's been that long.
The last podcast we talked about NBA free agency.
Yeah, the possibility.
And we talked about the actual possibility of him coming because
that was
it had
a while
seemed
ago.
really possible at that point. But we didn't
want to commit to the idea of it for sure.
Yeah, and really incredible to think about. LeBron announced that 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Over 2 weeks ago.
We're not even concerned about that anymore. We're concerned about if Kevin Love is coming to the Cavs
like
or not, and whether we're giving up
so
Andrew
quickly,
Wiggins or
like.
not.
And that was my favorite part was how quickly it blew over. Yeah. It's just like boop. Okay, he's in.
But LeBron James coming back to Cleveland. Cleveland is on the map again, sporting wise.
Yeah,
Johnny Football.
We got Johnny
LeBron
Football.
James.
The Browns seem like they're going in the right direction. The Cavs got LeBron back, and so they're instantly a top 4 seed in the East.
Well, some people saying the highest. Too.
I'm sick.
Of
Johnny Football. Notifications.
Ooh. Yeah, Johnny
Football
is really getting out of hand. Yeah,
I get at least once a day, if not more, and not from ESPN. I get them from CBS Sports, which is the app that I have on my phone because I'm done with ESPN. With the exception of games,
we should get to that in a second.
I'm done with ESPN. Done with them.
Yeah, we'll have a whole complaint on ESPN.
But that could be a podcast in its own.
Yeah, it really could.
But CBS Sports, who to me has become very trustworthy with, like, them and Fox Sports are my go-tos now. Fox Sports on the air, CBS Sports on the web or on my phone.
They're less TMZ.
Yeah,
than ESPN.
it's true. It's very true. And
which is how,
even with that, I still get at least once a day notifications talking about, like, it's not even news about, like, how Manziel's doing in camp. It's like
Manziel's been partying.
Manziel wishes that he had partied less in the offseason. Manziel needs to quit partying, and here's why. Pettine says that Manziel's partying won't be a distraction. Pettine says Manziel's partying isn't a distraction, but he should probably turn it down. NFL owner Jimmy it's like, I don't care.
It's like all they have to report right now.
Yeah.
It's a stale.
You know who I want to hear about? I want to hear about Josh Gordon. I want to know what's happening there.
Yeah, what is happening? We have no idea.
Yeah.
We have not heard. It was the initial announcement that he's facing a year-long suspension.
But does he have one?
Yeah.
Or is he appealing the potential of it? Is he appealing an official 1-year ban, or is he appealing a potential 1-year ban?
Yeah, that's what we don't know.
I don't
because
know.
There was the
No one
announcement.
knows.
All I know is he's appealing something.
Yeah, he's appealing a possible suspension. It's like he tested positive, he tested positive for this. What was that? 2 months ago? Was that in May?
I legitimately think
it was at the beginning of the summer.
It was a week after the draft.
I remember because
it was
less than a day after the draft.
Yeah, it was less than a week after the draft.
Because we were all excited. We got Johnny Manziel, and we were dreaming of him throwing bombs to Josh Gordon, and literally a week later, the dream got shattered.
Yeah, and that was in May. And we're almost this end of this week. We're in August, and
we have no idea.
Is he going to play this season?
Probably. I mean, probably not. But we have heard nothing. It was like there was that initial announcement, and we were waiting to hear more, and then we didn't hear more, and it's been almost 3 months, and we still don't know anything. Like, can we get some information, please? Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
It really is.
Got some pretty good leverage now, considering the whole Ray Rice situation too.
The Ray Rice.
That's why I'm done. That's my official pushing point for ESPN. By the way, with Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, I heard about. What did he say exactly?
It had everything to do with. I don't want to say it out of context, so I might have to find it here. So
yeah, you actually look that up. Let's actually get up. Let's go into ESPN.
Well, hold on. I want to hear the rest of Ben's point before we go into ESPN.
Okay, Ben, go ahead.
You were like talking about like
the
Ray Rice and leverage.
Goodell's already caught so much crap for this.
Mm-hmm. We have a full year with Josh Gordon. Ray Rice beat his wife and got 2 games.
Yeah.
How does that work? Of that, everyone on ESPN the day afterwards was talking, like, saying that it might have been too much. Like, they couldn't believe that it was 2 games. Like, there's video of Adam Schefter saying, like, was it too lenient? And he like, immediately clarified his actions. But the problem is, everyone on ESPN that day was like, it was almost like they were just speaking their mind, like, way more than usual, and
isn't that what they were doing 2 weeks ago with LeBron James, though, some of them?
But then a lot of people, like, went back and said, like, their comments were not necessarily within context, and it was just, it was absurd how all of that worked out.
I just can't, Goodell came out, and what he said is true, is the fact that they have pre-established policies on drug use and the misconduct that comes with it, and that it should be a year suspension. And look, Josh Gordon is an idiot for getting caught this many times. I'm not gonna hold back and not say that. I get that every athlete, not every athlete, but a lot of the athletes in most leagues are into that kind of stuff. That's
just how it is.
Just the culture. That's just the lifestyle. But you get caught 5 times? Are you kidding me? I mean, what's the threshold for you just don't know what you're doing anymore? Okay. So I get that, but just when you compare these two violations and punishments, it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
You're telling
Yeah.
me I have to beat my wife and drag her by her hair 8-9 times to get the equal suspension
to
that
equal
a guy gets
a
for
second
smoking pot.
Second or third violation?
Second.
Third. No,
Third
it's third.
vi-
It's
it's-
third
yeah, yeah,
violation.
And I
it's
mean,
third
we don't have to talk much further even about how ridiculous that is.
Yeah,
because you explain this to anyone and they know how ridiculous that sounds.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tyler, go
Okay.
ahead with your Stephen
Here's
A.
a
comment.
transcript. It's lengthy, but I'm going to try and read it all because I don't want to take anything out of context here. It's not about him then, Ray Rice. It's about you, women. And here's what I mean by that. We keep talking about the guys. We know you have no business putting your hands on a woman. I don't know how many times I got to reiterate that. But as a man who was raised by women, see, I know what I'm going to do if somebody touches a female member of my family. I know what I'm going to do. I know what my boys are going to do. I know what I'm going to have to remind myself that I work for the worldwide leader. I'm going to have to get law enforcement officials involved because of what I'm going to be tempted to do. But what I've tried to employ the female members of my family, some of who you all met and talked to and what have you, is that again, and this is what I've done this all my life, let's make sure we don't do anything to provoke wrong actions. Because if I come or somebody else come, whether it's law enforcement officials, your brother, or the fellows that you know, if we come after somebody has put their hands on you, it doesn't negate the fact that they already put their hands on you. So let's try to make sure that we can do our part in making sure that that doesn't happen. Now you got some dudes that are just horrible and they're going to do it anyway, and there's never an excuse to put your hands on a woman. But domestic violence, or whatever the case may be, with men putting their hands on women, is obviously a very real issue in our society. And I think that just talking about what guys shouldn't do, we got to also make sure that you can do your part to do whatever you can do to try to make sure it doesn't happen. We know they're wrong. We know they're criminals. We know they probably deserve to be in jail. In Ray Rice's case, he probably deserves more than a 2-game suspension, which we both acknowledged. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that we learn as much as we can about elements of provocation. Now that there's real provocation, but the elements of provocation, you got to make sure that you address them, because we've got to do what we can to try to prevent the situation from happening in any way. And I don't think that's broached enough, is all I'm saying. No point of blame. And I think where this veers off wildly is right at the end, where he tries to he says no point of blame, but to say that there's elements of provocation. And he's saying it in reference to women.
Yeah,
that they're
he's addressing women.
That they're provoking the man. Like that's the issue here. Is that like you can't say that there's provocation in issues like that and in issues like this, because that's
basically sort of saying sometimes you're asking for it.
Yeah, and that's not the case. And I haven't seen like footage of the Ray Rice thing, but I mean, from everything I've heard, it doesn't really sound like there's provocation.
Have you seen the video?
There seems to be.
It's not fun.
I don't feel like it would be.
I think you got to understand about Stephen A. He makes a lot of comments like that.
Well, did you? I was reading like, word for word. He's talking
he goes
in
back
circles.
and forth all the time.
What was that on?
That was on First Take.
Yeah, that was on First Take yesterday, or was it
Friday.
yesterday morning?
Friday
morning.
It was Friday the 23rd, 4th.
Yeah,
whatever.
And also, I mean, when you watch First Take, be
happens.
very careful because they're mostly entertaining.
You and me were talking about this the other day. First Take is like a man's soap opera.
For the most
That's
part,
what it is. It's just men arguing about sports.
On First Take,
and being dramatic.
It is for the most part feeding the trolls.
Yeah.
Is a lot of First Take.
I can't. Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless takes a lot of it.
I can't because he's the worst. But Stephen A. Smith is, I think,
when he
Skip
reports
Bayless
stuff,
does it more often, but he does it because he knows he's a troll. Stephen A. Smith, I feel like, doesn't realize that some of the stuff he says is like, dude, you gotta calm down.
Yeah.
He gets in his zone. That's what it is. He gets in his zone, and it's because he's around Skip Bayless too much.
Well, it's kind of because he takes Skip Bayless too seriously.
Yeah,
you know?
he's a bad. Skip Bayless is a bad influence.
Yeah.
And somehow they both still have jobs at ESPN.
That's the incredible part.
Stephen A. got hired for Sirius XM Radio.
Really?
He's gonna have his own show on there. I don't know if that means he's leaving ESPN.
Yeah,
but I know he has a radio. He has a show on ESPN Radio for New York.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he has. I think he's moving to Sirius now. Apparently.
Yeah. But anyways,
and what's funny is I don't know if they're related by any means, but that was announced after he had that whole First Take thing.
Yeah.
That whole speech
I heard
or
that
mantra.
too.
Yeah. But anyways, going away from First Take and just more the ESPN kind of broad sense, especially these last however many weeks of NBA free agency, it's become so it's ESPN has really gotten out of hand, especially with
when was the last
Chris
time
Broussard and all these different reporters and their sources.
Big
been so
quotations.
Many,
never inside that.
Never
that
mind
phrase.
that. When was the last time you saw more highlights on SportsCenter than bullshit news stories?
The problem,
or not even bullshit necessarily, but just like
blown out of proportion,
or just topics of
not discussions and not speculation and not
like
things
that
they claim
the My
heard.
Wish stuff, or like somebody like some famous athlete died and they do a tribute to him.
Do you
something
remember?
like
Do you
like
remember
a good
the summer
story?
Do you
not
remember the
just
summer where they
speculation.
did the Who's Now pyramid?
No.
Oh gosh,
I don't.
Who's Now?
They
They put athletes in brackets and say
Yes, I do.
Judged
Now
on
I remember
popularity
it.
in sports performance.
and every year
It was
LeBron
during this summer, this like summer time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is there's nothing to talk about this time of the year in
Well,
sports.
you have baseball, and baseball you can't really talk about.
Football
it that
hasn't
much.
started though.
Mhm.
Baseball gets boring by this point because
Definitely.
there's what
the dog days of summer.
162
162
games.
162.
Basketball's over, so they
Because it's too early to start talking about
ESPN
pennant
has
races.
figured out that they can talk about NBA free agency for a really
Okay,
long, elongated
well then-
time ever since the summer 2010 when LeBron had the decision and everything, and Miami joined forces with
Then
Dwayne
explain
Wade,
to
Chris
me-
Bosh, LeBron.
September to June. Explain to me the other 10 months of the year. Because I feel like even then, less than half the show is highlights.
Oh, you don't feel like that?
No.
Oh.
I still like I definitely see where you're coming from and completely agree with you that this time of year
That's
is the
how
worst.
I explain this. This segment, this
yeah,
part of the year.
June after the NBA Finals until week 1 of the NFL football season is the worst time of the year for ESPN and
Absolutely.
specifically SportsCenter
Oh, yeah.
because unless
Junk.
there's like
It's junk.
unless there's a bunch of 10-run games in baseball,
which never happens.
which doesn't
anymore.
it doesn't happen. It's not going to be filled. I feel
With
like
the
you can-
exception of the years, there's the Olympics,
yeah,
or a lot of times the World Cup too.
yeah, and even still this year, like when I
Yeah,
watched
even
the World
still.
Cup.
Well, the World Cup was
SportsCenter's-
after the finals, so
I
it
remem-
technically stretched out.
I remember watching a handful of sports centers after the World Cup games, and it was like a lot. Like the first 10 to 15 minutes was highlights and breakdown of the World Cup, and that's one of those segments where you can accept like discussion because it's the World Cup number
And
one,
yeah.
and there's only like 3 games a day, and it's the world. Like it's understandable. It's like the playoffs basically. Like you can accept if there's two
a
NBA
ton of attention.
you can accept if there's 2 NBA playoff games going on and they're going to talk about each one for 10 minutes afterwards. You can accept that because it's the playoffs. And especially if it's like a clinching game or an elimination game or something like that. Totally acceptable to do that. But then as soon as you are done with those highlights of those soccer games, all of a sudden it goes back to the fluff.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the unfortunately a
think
lot of
it's
the World
just-
Cup was around the time that LeBron was in free agency
Right.
too. So it was just
Fluff.
it was like World Cup LeBron, World Cup again,
Slightly.
LeBron,
Well-
and then the next World Cup game. if there was
LeBron
another
at
one.
the World Cup.
And anytime there was big news about LeBron, he took up all of SportsCenter. When he announced for Cleveland, I remember we watched it the night we got down in Florida. We turned on the TV. Every single tab
yeah.
except maybe one here and then a whole nother page and then one up here. It was all LeBron. It
And
was
that's-
all LeBron. Nothing else was covered.
Look, I get that is a huge deal.
Yeah,
I get the hype
definitely.
for maybe one night.
Yeah, for one night. But even still, like, there are other... And I think, for me, this began when ESPN started doing individual cities on their website. When they did ESPN New York, ESPN Boston, ESPN Dallas. When they started doing that, that's where it all went to shit. Because you don't see... It doesn't matter if the game was well contested or anything like that. You're not going to see a Colorado Rockies versus Arizona Diamondbacks highlight.
Never.
You're not going to see San Francisco Giants, LA Dodgers, even though it's a rivalry and they're fighting for first place in their division. You're not going to see Indians versus Royals highlights. You're not going to see those on SportsCenter anymore because it's all, at the very least at that time, because LeBron is bigger than all of that, and in ESPN's
ratings testify to that.
Yeah, and
that's why ESPN is getting the nickname TMZ ESPN.
Yeah, because they
it's a paparazzi
they
cover.
don't give you information now. They go for ratings. They don't go for information, and that's why CBS Sports and Fox Sports are where I go now because
they're gaining steam too. They are growing.
Viewers,
If Fox Sports had been able, and I know that it would have. NBC getting it is decent, but NBC Sports is not as readily available as Fox Sports and ESPN are, and that hurts. But if Fox Sports had kept Premier League soccer and been able to put that on their flagship stations in the wake of the World Cup, I think you see a huge influx of soccer watchers in America. But because NBC did it and they know how to present it. They know how to present it extremely well, but they've been terrible at marketing it. And they put all their games on NBC Sports, which nobody has.
Mm-hmm. Like to say, what package do you have to get that?
It's an expensive one.
Yeah.
And it's like that's a tough example because it's not one of the big three, but even still, like that would have been a great way for Fox to
try and
get people
on the soccer
to and to get more people to their network, which Fox Sports 1 is like a growing brand because they just redid everything. They brought in Jay and Dan from the ESPN Canada, which is like ESPN TSN or whatever it was, and they're like their flagship anchors, and they're hysterical. But like that was their shot, and now it's like they kind of have to go for like MLS and kind of hangers on, and they've got Major League Baseball right now because they're putting a lot of like their game of the weeks on Fox Sports 1 instead of Fox. But even still, it's just one night a week. It's not as frequently as you'd like to see for something like that finally has the window to take down the mighty ESPN or at least challenge.
Yeah.
And
but
it's just not working.
It's still, no one, I don't think ESPN at this point may never get overthrown because they're so big.
Well, but even to challenge for them, like that's a huge get for anyone. And
even
Fox
even
Sports
all
1
this
is the
complaining,
closest.
even all this complaining we're doing about ESPN, that's still the first thing I turn on every morning when I get up.
I don't.
I mean, I always watch SportsCenter.
It's changed in the last month. I admit I'm a sucker. And
Yeah.
I'm part of those ratings just because of all the LeBron, Cleveland hype, and all the free. Let's not be honest though. I enjoyed the free agency.
Yeah, it was
stuff
very
this year.
fun.
It was crazy watching how everything fell in place after LeBron made his decision.
But I think that was one of the
a
big
lot of fun.
places ESPN got exposed because
they got
it was very obvious. I mean, we talked about J.A. Adandi came out with that article 2 days before LeBron announced why would he go back and play for Gilbert. And I mean, it was an absurd article, and the only reason it was there is because he went to spend his winters down in Miami and not up in Cleveland.
It basically read that way.
Yeah,
right.
And I mean that was the whole.
But this
that was one of my favorite things, like their 5-on-5 thing or 5 for 5 or whatever it is.
Who was
all five of them said, what are the chances that LeBron stays in Miami? And Adonde was the lowest at 60%. Then it was like 70, 70, 80
Thorpe
and
was
99, and it was Thorpe who
frickin'
said
Thorpe.
99%.
Because he said, "Excuse
he
me
stays.
for not believing in this coming home mantra," or something along those lines. Just making
Yeah.
it sound like it's so pathetic for us to think that LeBron would ever come back.
And my favorite part was that like every single ESPN front runner, yippee hoo, let's go Miami, just got shit on.
the
As
hell
as
up.
I
the best
said, I forget how close it was to when the decision was actually made, but I tweeted out how
remember
excited
this.
I was for how much I hoped that LeBron would come back to Cleveland and everyone in ESPN would be standing there with the limpest of dicks in their hand,
Yeah.
just like, well, what do we do with this now, Miami? Because that's exactly what it felt like.
That's what exactly they had too when LeBron came out with the letter on SI.com.
Yeah, he
Even
didn't
bigger
announce-
slap in the
yeah.
face to ESPN.
Like,
It's like,
I've-
I'm
they-
going to Sports
I'm-
Illustrated.
Okay, I'm gonna put my conspiracy hat on here. This is kind of how I think it could have gone
You
down.
being clairvoyant Benjamin.
Yeah,
right now.
clairvoyant Benjamin, we'll call it that. LeBron went through ESPN with his whole decision thing back in 2010.
With
Big
ESPN.
Jim
mistake.
Gray was the one who supposedly originally came up with the idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Did you notice Windhorst and Broussard didn't really have anything?
No.
What's funny is,
They didn't.
and I haven't been a huge fan of Windhorst in the past because I think he's the biggest coattail rider ever. He did not say anything. He did not claim to have sources saying this or sources saying that. Chris Broussard was the complete opposite. And within an hour up to when LeBron announced he's going back to Cleveland, Broussard was claiming he had sources saying, "Oh, LeBron's struggling with the idea of going back to Cleveland because of Dan Gilbert's letter and everything," and that
Which is
was
hilarious.
Shot down.
That was my favorite part. Was like
later.
LeBron just kind of like dropped it in the
Right.
middle of an afternoon.
Right.
Like no expectations. Everybody was clearly getting like annoyed with the
Yeah.
wait, but he didn't say anything about
Right.
it. And all of a sudden, it just drops, and everyone on ESPN just gets shit on.
Yeah.
Speechless.
And
But
you know, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he planned that. Like, he told one of his guys, "Hey, leak this that I'm still upset about Gilbert," and then they'll look retarded.
His PR
When I finally
people
come out
know
about it.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
I
Now
don't know
they
if-
do.
I don't know
That-
if they
that
would have
could
done
have
that.
been it.
Yeah, they
But,
learned from their mistake.
So anyway, back to my original point. They didn't seem to really know anything at all.
Mm-mm.
I wonder if those two guys back in 2010 were one of the LeBron camps to push him to go do that on national television and make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, even LeBron, after that whole thing went down, had such a bitter taste in their mouth just from the whole presentation, the whole show and everything. The whole LeBron show 24/7.
Well, I mean, we remember
So
the
he-
Nike commercial.
I'll never
Mhm.
forget. That was just a rough few months. But this time around, he realizes how shitty of a job that ESPN did to present him in a good light. So this time, he goes silent for 2 weeks. And I mean, I remember analysts complaining like, "Oh, I don't think that was a good move to hold us in the dark for that long." It was just
That's
because
be-
it was just
yeah.
because
You didn't have anything to report.
ESPN
Yeah.
was just bitter as shit about not having anything concrete to actually report on.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks ends up, and then LeBron really puts the hammer down on him and releases a small little letter via Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
And that's
Doesn't even tell him.
No. Yeah, it doesn't even warn them. I feel like we found out before ESPN found out. Or at the same time.
That's
I just
seriously what I
like-
think he did to stick it to him and tell ESPN,
Yeah.
"Hey, you could shove it. You guys made me look so
Yeah.
bad in 2010.
Yeah.
I'm doing this on my own terms this time."
And I like to imagine, like, just imagining all the reporters at their desks or whatever at ESPN, and all of a sudden the news breaks and all hell just breaks loose. Like, people start shouting and they're running around like, "Holy shit!
like
How
the
did we
stock
not know
exchange.
about
It's like
this?"
the McAllisters when they wake up and realize they missed their
Exactly,
game.
See,
yeah.
the part that I think
We
of
did it
is
again!
From,
Yeah.
is from Trading Places where they're at
Yeah.
the stock exchange at the
exchange.
end.
Yeah.
And they're like waiting to see what a price goes to. And then it changes, and then everyone's like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
Throwing up
Like
papers
that's
and
what
stuff.
that's what I think of.
Yeah.
And then
is
Lee
their research
Jenkins,
room.
the SI editor, is Eddie Murphy just
Yes.
just standing there, just like looking around,
And then-
shaking his head.
Now we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Oh, I want that photoshopped on a GIF.
Yeah, that's
Lee,
seriously what it
Lee
was like.
Jenkins' face on Eddie Murphy's body at the end of Trading Places, and LeBron as
No,
Eddie Murphy, and Lee
Yeah.
Jenkins as Dan Aykroyd.
Racial.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah,
perfect.
to fit with racial
Yeah, it
things.
balances out.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
I almost said, and LeBron is Dan Aykroyd, and then I realized, oh wait,
Nope.
we've got to
Switch the
might as well
races
switch
there.
them here.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got both, so. But
That's seriously how I picture it. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it was
And
just
now
a
I
big
wanna watch
FU
Trading
to
Places.
ESPN.
Yeah. Damn
Great
it.
movie.
it's
But,
so funny.
But yeah,
Anyways, on the
It's-
Cleveland standpoint, though, we have LeBron back.
We do.
I mean,
And we've got Kyrie Irving long term.
yeah, long term, and
that might have been the biggest thing that attracted him.
I
was the
wonder,
fact
did he know about LeBron before he signed?
See, I don't think he did. You know,
I don't
there
think
was,
he did either.
Because
but
here's
it
my.
wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
If he
It
knew,
wouldn't surprise
think about
me.
this. He was probably going to come back eventually.
I feel like it was too
he had
because it was
dropped
his
hints.
team.
I just didn't think it was going to be this fast.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same
Well,
time,
he said he wanted to finish his career here. He said it like
He's
all
mentioned-
along.
he's talked about how he's missed the fans up here.
Mhm.
He talked about how he
because
missed
we're
living in
true.
Akron, Cleveland. Yeah, I can easily see why he prefer us fans
Yeah.
over Miami.
Miami's
and
white shirt
people are
wearing
going to shout out and say, "Oh yeah, the ones who burnt his jersey and everything."
Yeah.
Well,
Hold on, let's
in
stop
terms
and
of
clarify
loyalty,
right here.
and when you're playing for our team, we're gonna love the living crap out of you.
Well, let's stop for a moment and clarify here, okay? Everyone who says how Cleveland Cavalier fan we were burning his jersey after the decision. Let's be clear. The only clip anyone's really ever seen of that is the one clip that ESPN has shown for the past 4 years.
What was
Outside of Harry
with
Buffalo.
the wine color?
Yeah, the
jersey,
caffeinatic
red
jersey.
starts up here and then ends up on the ground.
Yeah, honestly, that's the only one anyone ever seen.
I
And everyone
can't
says
think of any
everyone
others.
burned their jersey.
I can't think of
Yeah,
any.
has anyone ever seen another?
Although there was one guy.
I mean, now I'm
I
sure.
I saw a picture of it actually. It was a guy at an Indians game with like a LeBron jersey that was like burned from like here down in like a weird pattern, and he was wearing it.
Yeah,
almost like
I
a
saw
half
that.
sleeve.
Yeah.
I saw that picture too.
Yeah.
But even still, like I feel like more people. And perfect example. Yesterday, I was at the Akron Zoo, and I saw a guy there with a LeBron James jersey, Cavs LeBron James jersey, and it was like the old school Cavs, like the orange
navy
and blue. Yeah,
and orange,
like, yeah.
orange lettering.
Like
I love
you
that
know
jersey.
that they haven't sold that one yet since he can. Like I'm positive that has not been released as a. Actually, it was yesterday in the middle of the
When he
afternoon
announced
when he announced
23,
it. So
yeah.
yeah, they wouldn't have had it.
They
So-
said that they're gonna start getting shipped out soon.
Yeah.
Finally. Pre-sale's been sold out in
Yeah.
every
Yeah,
variation.
so that was a guy who did not burn his jersey.
Yeah.
He kept, and granted
There-
this is in
it's-
Akron, so that's where like through this all, everyone in Akron still was pretty much loyal to LeBron.
Because they liked-
because
yeah.
they like what he does for
their
the city.
community.
Yeah.
But anyways, like
There's less
everyone
than
needs-
a 0.5. Obviously, I have no statistics to back this up, but there's got to be less than like half a percentage
Of
of
people who
LeBron
burned
Cleveland
their jersey.
Actually
jerseys
burnt
that
it,
were
yeah.
actually burnt.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. Like, yes, okay, we have that one fan that burned his jersey right in front of a camera. But, come on, have you seen another clip of someone burning a LeBron jersey? That's not saying people did. I'm sure people did, but
I still liked the guy.
it's not like we all took our
We didn't have
our
a KKK
LeBron jerseys
ceremony
all out
for
into
it.
a giant South Park pile and lit it on fire.
Sing Kumbaya.
Yeah.
I did
But-
like the guy who was a Heat fan, who had his LeBron James jersey, his number 6 jersey. This was on a Vine, and he like had a little like grill lighter, and then he turned it on. He was walking up to his LeBron jersey, and he goes, "No way, man! This is expensive as hell." And it just ended. I was like, "That's,"
Yeah.
and I feel like that's even with all of how it went down 4 years ago. Like
Yeah.
that's probably how a lot of people
Yeah.
reacted. It's just like,
Yeah.
It's like, dude, why are you gonna
Yeah.
burn that thing you
Yeah.
paid good money for?
Yeah.
I would not.
And to be
I
fair,
can't think of a single athlete who has played for Cleveland whose jersey I would want to burn. Like, LeBron is the closest, and even then I'd be like, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Like, nobody has has truly destroyed the city enough. The only man who did was Art Modell.
Doesn't have a jersey.
And he doesn't have a jersey. He has a grave that he's laying in like the bitch that he is.
Good riddance.
Suck it, Art Modell. I like how a Browns fan peed on his grave, filmed himself doing it, and then he got viral. Yeah.
I'm totally okay with that.
I think it's hilarious. I'd never do it. But it's just the depths that some Browns fans will go to.
And then
that's passion. That's people call it classless, and I agree to an extent.
It is a dead man. There has to be at least some honor in that.
Even with how much I hate what he did to the Browns, the fact is, like, as I was reading up about him after he died, like, that dude did a lot for the NFL.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, he did a lot to advance
a lot
the
of
NFL
the things
to get
were pretty
where
transcendent.
it is now.
They were pretty transcendent.
But he destroyed our franchise and left them a shell.
Won two Super Bowls.
It's hard to not take that personally.
He won two Super Bowls with our franchise.
Yes. Yeah. In 2000 and then 2012. He was dead then, though.
Yeah, he was. He had passed away.
So,
but still, I mean,
it's still. I'm not missing the point. But even with that, like, he's, and so it comes back to it's classless to pee on a man's grave, and it's classless to be like, he's dead, good riddance, whatever. But that's still like a passion in Cleveland fans that is unheralded almost everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And
people who aren't Cleveland fans just don't get it.
You can't explain it to anyone else.
Seattle fans would probably get it.
They would, but I don't like Seattle fans.
But
they just won a Super Bowl though.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Sonics and pre Super Bowl win this past year.
Fair enough.
They'd been suffering for
fair enough, but we've grown up.
Get is like Vikings or Vikings fans or Buffalo Bills fans. I can't say Cubs fans because Chicago's had too many winners otherwise.
Yeah. White
Sox, Blackhawks,
Bears. That's the other thing, everyone. Though. You talk about you have the Vikings, you have the Bills, but you don't have a city like Cleveland, where none of our teams have won a championship in so long.
We literally have a chance every year. One of our three teams could win.
Yeah, and we never do.
Yeah, we have more chance than a city like Buffalo.
Buffalo has the Bills, and they have the Sabres. Minnesota has, and neither of those teams have won for a while, by the way. Yeah. But they've got the Timberwolves.
Twins.
The Vikings, who have gotten close also, but haven't. And the Twins, who won in either 89 or 90. But they won.
They did win. Yeah.
No, it wasn't 90 because that was the Reds. But they won.
They have won.
They've won within the last, 25 years or so.
Yeah.
And that's still not even close. And then the other one that's classic that's been long. The only team, or the only city that's longer than Cleveland is San Diego. And, I can't have any sympathy for them because they're San Diego. It's like 1961, and we're 1964.
Ew.
Like the last, I think
what else do they have besides the Padres?
The Chargers.
Oh, that's right.
But that's it. There's no one in basketball for them. There's no one in hockey for them. But the Chargers, who have also gotten fairly close, and the Padres, who had Tony Gwynn. But I don't know how close they ever got to the World Series.
They were in the World Series in '98, but got swept by the Yankees.
Thank you.
But even then, they don't have. I mean, I don't know San Diego history or Minnesota history.
They're San Diego. They're in California.
But I don't know.
They've got it made.
They don't have as storied of a letdown after letdown like we do.
No, they don't.
Well, think about this.
Titles for our
we have
letdowns.
We
could hang banners for our letdowns.
We have double-digit letdowns across our city in the past 30 years.
Yeah. And think about this. Think about this. The Browns and the Indians, they used to be on top. I mean, it was a long time ago. The Indians was back in the 40s. The Browns, in the 40s through the 60s, they were on top.
50s and 60s. They were legendary.
Yep.
And now it's just Yeah, it
The
just
Cavs
fell all the way down.
Cavs
The
are
Cavs
only
have never
the-
been great.
They've been great,
Well,
but they
they've
haven't
been
been
great with
legendary.
No.
But they've been a great team.
They were
They've been
competitive
a
in the
great
90s.
they've been a great guy with other team members.
Yeah.
They were never.
But now we have the potential to have a legendary team.
We do.
And going back to Kyrie Irving, if you would have noticed, there was a lot of buzz about him probably leaving Cleveland when his
For a
contract
while.
was up, and he kept
A lot of it
tweeting,
from
"Guys,
ESPN.
I like it here in Cleveland." Like he
Again,
kept tweeting.
A lot of it from ESPN.
A lot of it from
Like,
ESPN, yeah.
Where's he going to go after his?
Yeah, and everyone was saying, "Oh, he's gonna leave," and then he comes out and he signs this $90 million
5-year
contract.
extension.
I really don't think.
Very similar to what Kevin Durant did. Just quietly
Mm-hmm.
announced on Twitter, "Hey, excited to say I signed a 5-year extension with Oklahoma City. Can't wait to stay here."
Mm-hmm.
Blah
Can't
blah
wait
blah.
to get
Yeah.
to work
And just
again.
completely just
Yeah.
undoes any potential rumor. He's here for a while.
And I won't say Kyrie knew LeBron was coming back. I think he knew he was probably coming back one day, and that he would want to be there for it. But he had no guarantee LeBron was coming back. I don't believe that for a second. I think he was one of those guys that genuinely wanted to be here.
Yeah.
And that's the guys that we haven't had. That's like Joe Hayden, Kyrie Irving, LeBron now. And, I mean, we haven't had guys like that.
Until now.
Until now, yeah.
And I mean, even the Indians, how many of our guys have we signed up long term in this offseason? Brantley, long term. Kipnis, long term. Gomes, long term. Swisher, we've still got him for another 2 years.
Previously. This was like last year, wasn't it?
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
2
we
years
signed him last offseason.
And, I mean, you look back.
I think our only like big guys that are going to be free agents fairly soon that we haven't locked up are Asdrubal Cabrera, which is at the end of the season,
And we
that's
can
because
let him go.
we've got Lindor
Yeah.
in the ranks,
And,
and the other
Let
one
him go.
I want to say it's next year is Santana, and I would have said a month ago get rid of him at the deadline. Now
Yeah.
I say
Keep him.
let's see where he goes.
Yeah, seriously.
He is,
Let
he's
him
the
ride.
hottest
Let
hitter
him
in
ride.
baseball right
He's the-
now.
They
Yeah.
just said he's the AL player of the
Yeah.
week.
As he deserves. And
Yeah.
Kipnis won it last week, didn't he?
Yeah.
2 weeks in
Guess
a row.
what?
Indians.
Guess what? We've been 5-6 on the road the last 2 weeks. Though.
Exactly.
I know. That's
I mean,
just it. Like we can't
to be-
keep like get winning streaks.
To
Too.
No,
be
we can't.
fair, going 500 isn't bad on the road.
No.
At the same time, it's frustrating because
It's
you
against
got
division
so
opponents.
excited when we took 3 or 4 from the Tigers.
Only to give them right back
Only
to the
to
Twins and the
give
Royals.
3 or 4 to the
Yeah.
Royals, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why it
And
seems...
in one of those games, we should have won. Actually, two we should have won.
I'm counting the Kluber game.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
too. That,
oh,
that
we
was what I
shouldn't have.
forgot about for a second. Yeah, he had a perfect games through
And then-
7 1/3.
And Rayburn spiked the ball.
Yeah, and then for the other
What the
one,
hell happened there? Like, how do you
okay,
do
here's-
that?
here's
Oh
what-
no,
here's-
I saw it happen.
I was gonna say what I
But
saw.
how do you
was, like,
just throw it,
he wanted
spiked it into
he
the
wanted to
ground?
throw to second, and nobody was there, so he just instead of like throwing it or holding up, he just chucks it into the ground. And then there's of course McAllister who is gifted a 5-run lead, and he gives up
And
6
then gave
runs.
it up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's the problem, and Tom Hamilton was talking about it. You've got Kluber, who can get you, almost guarantee you a win night in and night out.
Almost an all-star this
as
year.
long
yeah.
as you give him some runs.
Yeah, give him a little bit of runs. Give him like 4 runs, and you're probably good.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Trevor Bauer, who has matured greatly, and if you give him about the same amount, 4 or 5 runs, there's a pretty good chance you're going to win that game too.
Not as good of a chance.
It's not as good of a
Kluber.
chance, but and you can't. And at the same time, Kluber you can almost rely on to go like 7 maybe 8 innings.
Yeah.
Bauer, I don't see go past 6 or 7 very often.
Mm-hmm.
He usually falls between 6 and 7, so you got to rely on the bullpen a little more there. But then after that, where'd he go? Tomlin just went back to Columbus.
Masterson has
Yeah.
been terrible this
And
year.
he did
You know
not
what's
have a
frustrating
convincing
about
rehab
Tomlin
start.
is he
this past
goes.
week.
Tomlin goes back to AAA, goes and just dominates, wins every game,
Yeah,
and then
What
he comes.
even-
And then
what-
he comes up here and he's horrible.
What
That's
was it?
so
A
frustrating.
week before the All-Star break, he pitched a 1-hitter.
yeah.
Are you shitting
And then
me?
we
What happened?
we were at the next game. We were for Merv's birthday.
Yeah.
He pitched Kansas City, and
Shout
he
out
did
Merv.
horrible.
got
Shout out to Merv.
wrecked. Shout out Merb because
Shout out
we all
Merb.
did it.
Love you, Merb.
But Tomlin is to me like more frustrating than Masterson. Masterson has been for the most part a 4 to 5 inning inconsistency all season long. Tomlin goes out and like 2 out of every 3 starts are terrible, and then his third start he'll go like 7 innings and give up 1 run, and you're like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah,
where's this?
He'll have that sweet spot one game.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's one nice thing with Detroit is that Verlander's having like his worst year in his career.
But
that's really
still in first
that's
place,
really
though.
Yeah, I know.
I really don't
because they've got
mind
the hitting.
Yeah,
that's true.
they got Cabrera and Victor Martinez.
Why
the hell did we ever give up Victor Martinez?
Well, we got Masterson for him,
which
originally worked out. Now
not so much. Well, Victor Martinez has been.
Victor Martinez
is
swinging a brick wall right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing gets past that guy. I read the week after the All-Star game that he was on pace for 30 home runs and under 40 strikeouts, which a list of like 15 guys in Major League Baseball history has done. Whoa. And it's possible, and if he like was able to lessen that pace, he could go for 30 home runs or 40 home. I guess I said it wrong. If he picks up the home run pace, he could go for 40 and then under 40, which I think only like 4 guys have done.
Yeah.
That's the type of year he doesn't strike out very often. And then I think it was in the last series against him, Bauer or Kluber, somebody struck him out twice in one game, which I don't think has happened all season long.
That's rare. Yeah. I bet.
Yeah.
Probably won't happen again the whole year.
No, but even still, like to read that and that was happening, I was like, that's one guy on an all-star team that is in our division. It's like, how are we even within striking distance of that team right now? It doesn't make any sense.
Lucky, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, it is amazing that we have won as many games as we have because we've had okay pitching, terrible offense,
most of the time,
under average
pitching
fielding.
has been our best.
Terrible fielding, under average hitting.
Yeah,
I'd switch those two because our hitting comes up every now and then, like 10 runs.
Yeah. We have
yesterday.
games we won't hit anything, and then all of a sudden the 7th inning we'll explode for 10 runs, and we win the game.
It's just consistency. It's consistency.
I saw Saturday night during that game in the 7th inning. It said that the Indians have scored 168 runs in the 7th inning or later, which is the most in Major League Baseball.
Which is
impressive, but that also means that you're playing from behind most of the time.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Let's be honest.
Yes, it is fun.
Those teams in the 90s, those were fun.
Also, it said in that same game, and obviously the stats are updated now, but it's still probably pretty similar, that the Royals and the Indians were the 2 best teams in Major League Baseball when winning after 7 innings.
We're just never winning after 7 innings.
On Saturday night, when I saw this, it said the Royals are 40-1 when they're leading after 7 innings. The Indians 39-1.
See, that's ridiculous.
If you can take them, if you can give them a lead going into the 7th inning,
the
Indians are probably going to win. Especially combine that like taking a lead into the 7th inning, second best in baseball, combined with most runs scored 7th inning or later, most in baseball. Like that's a team that like give them that lead early, they're going to win baseball games.
That's why.
But the problem is we have given up a lot of leads in the 5th and 6th inning.
This is why stats can't tell the whole story.
Yeah, let's talk about this too.
Because
we're 8 out, and we have those 2 stats in our corner.
Yeah. But if you'd actually watch the games, you'd see how frustrating it is. Sometimes.
Oh, it is terribly frustrating.
And it's
so obscured.
I'm gonna use this to make another knock at ESPN. The dumbest show on television. Numbers never lie. That is the stupidest show on television.
Never watched it.
Numbers lie all the time.
I'm a huge stat nerd, but I know they don't tell the story.
They do not tell the whole story. Jamel Hill and Michael Smith, I'm sorry, you guys are clowns on that show.
Michael Smith especially. I can't stand that.
I hate Jamel Hill more, honestly. They're both clowns on that show. Numbers lie so much. It is the stupidest show on television.
I didn't mind when Numbers, like, by the Numbers was simply a quick little segment on ESPN.
Oh, where it looked like they were drawing the segments or whatever. Yeah.
Like that was a minute-long segment.
They shouldn't have turned it into a TV show.
Yeah.
What's funny is Chris Broussard, after the whole LeBron going to Cleveland.
Yeah, this was the funny part.
After all the bull crap he had been reporting for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the middle of the week we were switching around the ESPN channels and saw Numbers Never Lie was on. And for a split second, we saw Chris Broussard was hosting it on a Wednesday afternoon.
Which is funny because after the whole LeBron thing, it's obvious he's getting knocked way down.
He got
knocked all the way down onto he got the bitch seat on Numbers Never Lie.
It was hilarious.
Yeah, it was very.
It's like we have nowhere else to place. Have you noticed he's a sideline reporter too? For ESPN, like he did sideline reporting in the NBA this past season.
Huh.
And I remember thinking to myself, what the heck did Broussard do to get demoted down low to?
He must
have
that
his sources haven't been very good. That's the other thing about
his
ESPN.
sources is a LeBron Kush doll that he has in his basement.
That's the funny thing. All of
with
ESPN's
a magic 8-ball in the stomach.
Yeah.
all of ESPN's reporters are getting knocked about journalistic integrity.
Yeah,
well, they should,
and they should be. They've been terrible this off.
I don't understand what the obsession is with getting the scoop. The scoop. That's all they talk about is saying, I reported it first. I claimed it first. I don't understand. You have my respect if you hear news and then analyze it properly and talk about what the implications of that news could be. Instead of saying, oh, well, I said this first, therefore I'm the best. That just doesn't do anything for me.
Okay, classic thing like this before we have, because
we should probably wrap up.
We're almost at an hour. It was during a Monday Night Football, like after the game. The panel was like Trent Dilfer, Stuart Scott, Rick Riley, and Steve Young. And I forget what it was, but there was like breaking news about an injury, I believe. And somebody, I think Sal Palantonio, like, commented on it because it was breaking news, but it had been reported on the Twitter page of Rick Riley. And the camera comes back to that set of those four. Mm-hmm. And Riley, before the segment started, but after the cameras were clearly there, because everyone else is like looking at the camera, Riley leans forward and says to Stu, "Hey Stu, can you mention that I had that scoop first?"
Are you serious?
On air. Steve Young, who I don't like.
No,
as an
I've
analyst,
never been a fan of
don't like
Young.
Steve Young. He just looks at him and gives him like just this, bro, are you serious? Look for a solid 10 to 15 seconds into the set. Like Stuart Scott starts talking about stuff, and Steve Young's just still staring at him like, seriously, that's what you care about right now. And I was like, that is one of my favorite ESPN moments in all of history. Is that like that sums up all of their analysts?
That's probably a glimpse into how analysts work. That's what it's about, is saying, well, I saw this first. I heard about this
and make
first.
sure everybody knows that I reported this first. It's absurd.
So egotistical and just dumb.
Okay, so we didn't even talk about Kevin Love. That's unreal.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways.
I can't believe we never got
which is nice, because actually by the next time we do one of these, we might have something to talk about.
Yeah.
Honestly, we'll just do this real quick, though. Would you trade Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love?
No.
If that's the only way to get Kevin Love at this point, I'd trade him.
No.
I don't think... I seriously, I think the reason this has been going on for so long is because we might not be trading him.
I know. And I don't want to.
What's your reason for not trading him?
It's simple. Everybody and their brother knows Kevin Love is done in Minnesota. He's not going back. Unless they somehow go to the NBA Finals this year. He's not going.
Timberwolves are going? Unless the Timberwolves go to the Finals?
They're not.
Okay.
And that's my point. They're not.
He's leaving.
He's leaving Minnesota. I say give LeBron a year to gel with a completely new team save for Varejao, and is there anyone else from when he was there before?
Nope.
Okay, so Varejao and a bunch of new people, give him a year to gel with this team. Give him time to help Kyrie improve his game. Give him time to help make Wiggins into the star that we all know that he can be. Give him a decent, not NBA title winning reign, but
no, and without Love, that expectation is not as high.
A good playoff, a good season. And I don't even expect them to be the number 1 seed, quite frankly. I just expect them.
Talk 2 or 3.
I expect them to be to win their division, be a top 4 seed.
So you think they'll be better than the Bulls?
I think so.
Okay.
Because to me, Derrick Rose is a bigger question mark than the entire Cavs team.
That's how I.
He's got 2 bad knees now, but also so does Chris Paul. So take that for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, go ahead.
When Rose returned though last year, even for the few games
he didn't look good.
He didn't look that great.
Yeah. So anyways, give LeBron a year to be with this team. Let them do what they're going to do. Let them see how they're going to work as a team. Then next year, after whatever contracts you have left that can be unloaded in the offseason,
Brendan Haywood.
Trade.
Get them all out of there. And bring in Kevin Love in the offseason.
So you think
because then all of a sudden you've got LeBron, Irving, Love, Wiggins. Is Varejao still under contract at that point?
Yeah.
Is Waiters still under contract at that point?
Yeah.
Waiters is too.
So Tristan Thompson is as well, and so is Anthony Bennett, assuming he's still there and not part of a trade for anyone at any point.
Right.
Because I feel like if anyone's going to be, it's going to be
trade bait.
Waiters and Bennett are the 2 biggest trade bait points on that team.
You still got them. You got Mike Miller,
and you got Mike Miller,
James Jones,
Ray
probably
Allen.
Ray Allen.
Probably.
Yes, and all making peanuts, and then you spend all the rest of that money on Love. That's the only free agent you need to bring in. Anyone else is pine riding bait. No one else needs to sniff the court.
Not even Roy Hibbert?
No.
Don't go after Roy Hibbert.
You've got LeBron, Waiters, Irving, Thompson, Wiggins, and Varejao, the 3 other boys you said. Love, there's 11, and then Bennett is 12. So really, how many
That's
more?
your roster.
Someone was calling the Heat people, the Heat guys who followed him up. Someone was calling them cleverly the Kings guard. I thought that was hilarious.
It is tremendous. But that's all you need is love. I just got that. But seriously, that's to me that is the best course of action. I'd much rather do that. Wait a season because we've waited this long for a championship. Our best chance is with this team plus Kevin Love, not Kevin Love minus Wiggins and Bennett and
a first round pick.
And a first round
pick.
pick.
First round picks
or all those expiring contracts they just traded for. I would much rather just sign him.
That is
Here's the problem.
Dream scenario. That's best case scenario.
That is best case scenario.
I think the Cavs are too antsy.
I think they are too.
And here's why I don't blame them. Because if it's true that LeBron said, "Hey, go get this guy,"
they want to get this guy.
We can't do the same thing we did when we were trying to get Amari Stoudemire back in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
You remember we were holding out on that so long because they wanted J.J. Hickson.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to give him up because we thought we saw so much potential in him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what Hickson's done now, but that's the only reason
I think
why
he played for
didn't.
The Kings and then the Blazers.
Yeah, something like that.
That is the only reason why we didn't pull the trigger on trading for Amari Stoudemire, who was still a star at the time.
Yeah, now he's got worse knees than Derrick Rose.
Right, and if he doesn't go to New York, I mean, who knows if his knees stay as bad and he has as many injuries as he did in New York as if he was with Cleveland. But I feel like it's the same situation, and we didn't pull the trigger that time. LeBron left that year. I feel like it's kind of getting off to a bad start with LeBron again, who is basically the GM at this point, and we should just do what he says, if you ask me.
But does LeBron
a lot of times.
Does LeBron want to play with Wiggins?
He didn't mention him, and I think people are being a little
They're
too
blowing that out of
conspirative and
proportion.
blowing it out of proportion that he didn't mention him in the letter or whatever. Because some people think when they walked in and talked to LeBron before he signed, they said, "Oh, we can get Love, by the way, for you," or like that's a done deal, or we're in closing talks about it, or whatever. But this is why I don't mind trading Wiggins if that's what we have to do and that's what eventually happens. I won't. I've come to peace with it because I'm like you. I really like Wiggins. And I didn't want to give him up. I was just like, oh, please no. Please don't make us give up our first pick in the draft that we just, drafted and everything. This is my argument, though. LeBron's got 3-4 years where he's on top yet, I think. And it might be more. Who
I don't think it is. I think he's got 4
a
years
lot of
max.
miles. He's got a lot of miles, and that's the difference between saying, oh, yeah, well, physical therapy and everything, athletes can play longer and longer, it seems like, into their late 30s and early 40s or whatever. But that's why I feel like we got to try and win with this team now. And Wiggins, how often does a rookie right away contribute to a team?
Kyrie Irving.
Derrick Rose I can think of recently.
And then LeBron James.
Blake Griffin. LeBron James.
But he wasn't a rookie, technically. It was just his
Technically,
first year.
he was.
Well, his rookie year, technically. Yeah. But I'm saying...
But technicality.
We don't know... Wiggins is not very developed offensively.
Yeah, that's everything that I've seen. He's more defensive.
And...
That's where he's best.
Everyone says, oh, he's a top 5 defensive player and everything. He didn't win any defensive awards at Kansas in the Big 12. That's really overblown. And I heard he wasn't... He did all right in the Summer League. And I don't try and pay too much attention and, I'd really take any news from the Summer League with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Summer League. It's the youngest players in the league playing against each other. That's why I feel like if that eventually is what happens, I think we're holding out and we're really trying to get him without giving up Wiggins, which I really give the Cavs a lot of credit for because I'm sure it's not easy to deal with Flip Saunders.
No,
he's
still harboring a grudge from 2007.
He's being a huge troll about this.
We have shut Chase completely out.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. You will hear my opinion and you will listen to it. But please continue.
So that's why I feel like if that's what needs to be done, get Love now. So the next 4 years, we know we've got that core that, Kyrie Irving and Love are both a lot younger than Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh.
Mm-hmm.
And that could last longer. I don't think Kyrie's knees are going to break down the way Wade's have the last 2 years.
He's still so young. I don't think they will either.
Right. So I just think it's a question of how many years do you want your window to be?
Yeah.
Or how big do you want your window to be in a short amount of years?
Yeah.
So that's, and I choose the latter of the two.
Yeah.
A bigger window now. So.
All right, you guys done?
Yeah. Sorry, Chase.
Now it's your turn.
We've been on our
We're not going to get to our other.
Time.
There's just no way. We're so far in at this point, anyways.
Well, here's my view on things. I wouldn't exactly mind if we went ahead and pulled the trigger for Andrew Wiggins. Because if we do, or we pull the trigger and trade Andrew Wiggins, if we do, we still have Waiters, and Waiters could still turn into something good.
He believes he can.
He believes he can. That's a whole nother argument.
He needs to come to Jesus talk with
LeBron.
He
does.
We'll leave it at that.
But I wouldn't trade Wiggins, and here's why. First of all, there's several reasons, but first of all, think about LeBron's teams back 2009, 2010. His best player was Mo Williams. They won 60 games 2 straight seasons in a row. Had the number 1 seed 2 straight seasons in a row. Mm. They still had Boston in their league. They had the Magic, who are still really good. They had the East wasn't as bad as it was last year, and could potentially be this year.
The Hawks.
LeBron can win a lot of teams
with
this game.
Weren't too bad either. Before everybody went and got overpaid.
Bulls were on the rise.
Yeah. And LeBron is better than he was in 2010. He has more miles, but he's still better. He can elevate his teammates. I think they could be a 1 seed. I don't necessarily think they will, but they're going to win enough games. They're going to be a top 3 seed, no doubt, if you ask me. Okay? And the other part of it, Kevin Love, he wants to be in Cleveland. And
no, he wants to be with LeBron.
He wants to be with LeBron, who happens to be in Cleveland. Eventually, I don't think Flip Saunders is going to stand for losing Kevin Love for nothing. I think eventually we could be able to get him without Wiggins.
He'll give in eventually.
I think he's going to have to.
I think he will too.
Yeah, I mean, they can't just let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
No. I mean, the LA made that mistake with Dwight Howard.
Well,
I mean, teams
Orlando
have made that before.
Oh no, Orlando didn't make that mistake with Dwight.
Yeah.
Howard.
So, I think we can eventually get Kevin Love without trading Wiggins. And the other thing, too, is, yeah, Wiggins isn't great offensively yet, but he's playing with LeBron. Like, LeBron can be to Wiggins what Jordan was to Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen was not a good offensive player when he came in the league.
No.
MJ made him what he was. Pippen was all defensive when he came into the league, and then he got with Jordan, and Jordan made him amazing. And I don't want to compare LeBron to Jordan in that aspect.
I was just getting ready to say,
Skip Bayless is going to pop out of the couch.
Let's stop. All LeBron and MJ comparisons need to stop. I started writing a blog on a LeBron MJ comparison. It just all needs to stop. LeBron is his own monster.
Okay.
You have MJ, you have Magic, you have Bird. He is his own monster. Okay, but the best thing that could happen to Andrew Wiggins is playing his first few years with LeBron.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, you give the 3
not
years,
with Ricky Rubio.
3 or 4 years, maybe LeBron's out of his prime by then, but you have Wiggins just coming into his prime. There's still a
Irving,
two-headed
who's
monster.
in the middle of his prime.
Yeah.
Time is the biggest
Yeah.
factor
And-
still. How long is that going to take
Yeah.
for him to get there?
And with LeBron, too, I don't necessarily think that when he's out of his prime, he'll be...
Not very good anymore all of a sudden. Yeah.
He may come out of his prime, but he still may be the best player in the league. Jordan came out of his prime late in his career, but he was still the best player
Well, look
in the
at
league.
Kobe, too.
Yeah.
Kobe, like, in his not great years, still pulled Lakers teams to the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was technically, you consider his prime, probably.
Yeah.
He was at the tail end of his prime, I guess you could call it, when Gasol
Was his
came
prime
in.
12 years long?
He had a long prime.
He did have a long prime. I'd say probably right at the end of the Kobe Shaq era into
Kobe Gasol.
2004 through 2006 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was by far the best player on the team. That's also when he had his worst teams, though.
Yeah. And
he dragged those teams to 6, 7, 8 seeds.
yeah. And I mean,
They got
LeBron
beat by the Suns every year.
LeBron does have Durant coming really fast at him. Like, Durant could very well overthrow him in a few years as the best player.
Deservedly so. To me, he's the second best player in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not necessarily saying that he's going to. LeBron may come out of his prime and still be the best player in the league.
And still be the guy.
Yeah. I mean, LeBron could probably play another 10 years.
Also
if
come
he
out of his
could.
prime at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I think LeBron, he could play 10 years. I think 6 or 7 probably at most.
Right.
But I mean, you never know. I think we have more time than people are thinking.
Right.
Is my
point.
point.
So on one side, it's not like 4 years is going to go by and suddenly LeBron James is
Obsolete.
59
Yeah.
on 2K12.
Exactly.
And it's also not like 2 years from now, if he plays under LeBron's wing, Andrew Wiggins is going to be a superstar.
Exactly.
It goes both ways.
It does go both ways. So I think we should hang on to Wiggins because I think in the long run that's going to be better. But I understand the win now mentality. Cleveland wants a championship, and we got to get one eventually.
And
So
if we just
that's
get
my
one,
2 cents on everything.
Yeah.
It means more for LeBron's legacy, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway.
We ended the
have
last podcast with prediction. So we're going to do that again here.
Okay,
What was the
prediction.
It was my prediction for the World Cup final.
Oh, okay.
I was very wrong. Well, not very wrong. I said it would be Germany and the Netherlands, but that the Netherlands would win.
Just because
I
you
was-
didn't like Germany.
Yeah, pretty much. And Germany got there, so I was right.
Fair enough.
And I didn't want the Netherlands to win because I liked Argentina more, but I just didn't think they'd actually pull it off. But anyway,
So-
that's not the point.
Yeah. Okay,
The
prediction
point is-
this time.
Prediction. Who is in the NBA Finals against each other? Who wins? Before any further trades, anything. Like, assuming at this point, if the season started today Kevin Love is not a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay.
You have to make a prediction
Based
at the beginning
on
of
the
the season
current
based
rosters.
on rosters for all the teams. Who is in the finals? Who wins the championship?
I called last. I have to think about this.
That's
Based off of the least amount of NBA and basketball knowledge
okay.
in this
Yeah,
room.
Fair enough. I don't want to be a homeboy here, but
That's me.
I don't know who I'd pick out of the East, so I'm going to go with Cleveland. I think I'm going to go with Cleveland out of the East because, the Bulls are dangerous, but you have no idea about Derrick Rose.
I'm sick.
And
I
I know-
had so much faith and hope for the Bulls last year with Derrick Rose and everything. I don't want to give them an unfair bias, but I want to stop getting let down from that.
So I don't trust Derrick Rose on the Bulls, and even though they got Pau Gasol, he is older, and I don't think that puts him over the tops from, say, like 2011 when the Heat just came out and shit on him in the
Remember that
Eastern
Twitter thing
Finals.
that I saw that said Pau Gasol signed a 3-year contract with the Thunder?
with OKC.
Yeah.
If that had been true, I would have said Thunder,
OKC.
Yeah,
champions,
absolutely.
no question.
Yeah, definitely. But so
Unfortunately, that
I
wasn't
don't
the
trust
case.
Derrick Rose. I don't trust the Pacers at all after last
No.
season. The
And
Heat don't have
especially without
LeBron anymore,
Stevenson.
so I don't trust D Wade's knees. I think I gotta go with Cleveland.
That's why they
in
say the East
Eastern
is
Conference.
wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Western Conference. I know people are really talking about the San Antonio Spurs. I'm not as sure about them because San Antonio's never been a repeat team. It's always been more longevity. They've
So
never
you're
they've
looking
never
to history.
Yeah, they've never made a serious run at a title after winning one the year before. So I'm going to say Cleveland Thunder. Well, I'll say Thunder just because we're Cleveland and we don't get nice things. I'll say
and
Thunder
because
win.
the Thunder deserve
Yeah,
this
I think Durant's going to get his title eventually. I think next year could be the year.
All right,
Before
am I next?
LeBron is fully gelled with the Cavs and we potentially get Kevin Love and whatnot, and that's all solidified before they become juggernaut. I'm going to say the Thunder win it all next year. Or find a way to.
Well, for me, it's the exact same reasoning with the East. I don't think anybody is a clear-cut number one with the bullet. Like, this is the team you've got to watch out for.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, I think it's between the Cavs and the Bulls. And I also think that the Cavs will get there. I don't think it's going to be easy.
No, absolutely not.
It's going to come down to the Cavs and the Bulls, barring injury. Like, I don't see it being any other team aside from those two. But I think it will be the Cavs in the end, in the Eastern Conference, representing them in the tournament, or in the finals. Western Conference,
It's so hard for the West, dude. There's so many teams that could potentially make it.
I don't want to say the Thunder because you just said it.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree from the Spurs standpoint, partially because of history, partially because I felt like last year they just wanted it because they were furious.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think that this year...
I
This
heard-
year they're going to have the fire to get there again because of the defending champs, but it's not going to be the same.
I heard
They were
Simmons call it.
pissed.
Simmons called it the Eye of the Tiger today in his podcast. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, and
Eye of
in
the
his
Tiger.
book, it's in the book of basketball. I always go back to it. His number one level on ranking a team, you haven't gotten there yet, is the "F you, we're winning this" mode. And that was the Spurs last year. They
Yeah.
had just come off losing a title, and they came out and they're like, "This, we're gonna shit on everyone," and that's what they did.
And so my choice for the West is going to be I think that I'm gonna go with a shocker here.
Upset.
I'm gonna say the Mavs
Oh, gee.
because
They're
Chandler
sneaky. They're gonna be sneaky.
going back to that team, still with Dirk, and still with some really good. I mean, that was an 8 seed that gave the Spurs their toughest challenge of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. The Spurs rolled everyone else, but Dallas, it was tough. It was really tough. I think that's a Dallas team that still doesn't make it as the top seed in their division, but they are a 4 seed. And I think that Chandler reinvigorates his career back in the place that got him a championship. And I think they go to the NBA Finals as a 4 seed. Who do I think wins? I have to pick Dallas because I just don't want to jinx it for Cleveland, and because they're Cleveland, so I don't think they're going to win. So
enough said. Yeah,
I think that Dallas in an upset makes it to the NBA Finals, kind of similar to how it was before. They just kind of made it there unexpectedly and won it against the Heat.
Do what they do. Yeah, do what
so
they
that's
do.
and ironically, it's the Mavs winning it over LeBron's first year with a new team. And so I'm going to say Mavs over Cavs in the NBA Finals. Dirk gets his second ring, cements his Hall of Fame status.
All right. I think I'm starting with the West. I'm not going to be like you guys. I'm torn between Clips, actually, and Spurs. Spurs, they could be great again, like for all the reasons you guys said. But I think the Clips are coming off a lot of adversity in the past year, and that can always fuel. They've got another year of playoff experience, all those young guys.
Mm-hmm.
The same time, the Spurs are the exact same team as they were last year. I think I'm going to choose the Clips, though.
Hey, fair enough.
Yeah, new era.
Hey, I would not have a problem with that.
Another year of them playing under Doc Rivers, I think, is huge.
Especially now that the Sterling stuff is,
and that's all over.
Is going.
I feel like this could be a redeem type story for the Clippers organization and everything. I think
that would be tremendous if the first year without Sterling at the helm they win a championship.
How big of an FU would that be?
Yeah, that'd be great.
In the East, I know what I said earlier about the Bulls, but they just seem like one of the best teams in the East. Cavs, too. And then I think the Wizards are going to be really good. Re-signed Gortat.
Yeah, I forgot about them completely.
John Wall. They signed Paul Pierce. Nene. Who else? They got another big, didn't they? Who was it?
Trevor. No, Booker went to Dallas.
Yeah. I forget who else.
They got Drew Gooden.
But their team has seemed really good. I think they learned a lot last year, losing to the Pacers in the second round. They've got a series win on their belt. I think I'm most torn between Cleveland and the Wizards. You said barring injuries, though. And that includes Derrick Rose injuries. So I think
Rose is gonna Rose.
I think I'd go with the Bulls, and have the Clips win it though.
I wouldn't have a problem with winning.
Even after it all, to wrap up the podcast, even after all of it, we all pick Western Conference teams to win the championship.
Because the West is so strong. Still so wide open.
Yeah, exactly.
You just don't. West, everybody who watch this season, you don't know what you're going to get.
Everybody who comes out of the West is a favorite.
Yeah, and the previous 3 years before this year, if you would have put the Heat in the West, they probably could have won the West. That wasn't the case this year. I don't think they might not have even got to the first round.
No,
in the West
depending on
this
who
year.
they played. Yeah,
depending on who they played. And that's the big difference.
Yeah, I think
there isn't one of those
that they beat.
There just isn't one of those teams this year. Like it could be like a 2007 situation where the Cavs just get in because they have LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned those.
Detroit was a better team, but LeBron was just mad.
I think the fourth team in those top four could be the Heat.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
That's the top four teams in the East.
With Bosch going back, I can see it.
And Wade. I think Wade's
yeah,
going to have a more
I don't want to
normal
write off
role,
Wade,
and
but
that could actually be good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, I don't want to call it lazy, but he just didn't get that many reps up, didn't get into that.
This wasn't the same.
Yeah, it just wasn't the same. That constant, day in, day out grind. And sometimes that can actually be better than resting all the time.
Yeah.
Weird science that doesn't make sense, but
Well,
I know he ran out of gas at the end too. But
speaking of running out of gas, this podcast is now on E.
I gave the perfect segue.
You did.
Anyways, signing off now.
Yeah.
Alrighty, sounds
All
good.
right.
Thanks for listening.
See you later.
See you guys. Shout out to Hallie. She watched all of season 4 of Game of Thrones in 3 days. So,
Holy
I just
crap.
want to give it a shout out to our
Exactly.
cousin Hallie.
Good job, Hallie. That was awesome. All right, see ya.
See ya.